Hello, my name is Skylar.
And my name is Tyler. I pay respect to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation where Dad's podcast is recorded.
I live on Bunjil land. I believe Bunjil is the creator of land of our first peoples. He is the creator of the land of where I am right now.
I pay my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Hello and welcome to Over the Rainbow, a podcast series dedicated to all things Rainbow Dads. I'm Murray, I'm your host. Today I've got a huge smile on my face right now because I'm really excited to introduce today's chat. I am speaking with Andrew and Adam. They are two Rainbow Dads who own and operate their own childcare centre. I mean, how lucky am I to be able to sit down with them and discuss all things childcare? We talk about what to do when choosing your childcare provider, questions you might want to ask, things to look out for that might present a red flag, and we even discuss the childcare subsidy. It was a fantastic chat and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So here we go. Hello and welcome to Over the Rainbow, a podcast series for Rainbow Dads. As you heard in the introduction, today's episode is about childcare. And to discuss that, I have Adam and Andrew. Thanks, guys.
G'day, how you going, Muzz?
So, Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Adam. Been working in education now for probably 16, 17 years. I worked in primary school, teaching mainly foundation or what was called prep, grades 1 and 2. I've worked all the way up though and did some work in secondary schools as well. But I have really enjoyed my time in education.
Amazing. And Andrew?
Yeah, Adam's partner have been for, 14 years we've been together?
Correct.
And been a management consultant for a company called Accenture for about 20 or so years, and then helped out Adam in the running of our childcare centre, which we'll talk about shortly. But
Yes, we will. So, but before that, you not only do you have the qualifications, but you're also dads to two children. Briefly tell me the journey to those two children.
I think what happened originally, there was an advertisement around the surrogacy conference that was in Melbourne. And so I flagged with Andrew that it'd be great to go along and just sort of understand what that process was.
How long ago was that?
It's probably 4 or 5 years. It was in Melbourne. It would have been way prior to COVID. One day was an international, the second day was domestic. So we went to gather some information and really lean into sort of understanding what that meant for us to become parents.
Yeah. So you guys knew that you wanted to be parents. It's something you had discussed.
I mean, I think that's always been his intention. I was open to it. And then, as we talked through the process and we realised what it involved and we thought, we probably could do a okay job at being parents, that we decided to pursue it. But following that conference, we started to talk about with friends that we were going to go down that journey. We were very lucky to have an offer from a friend for our first child.
Amazing.
So,
altruistic.
Altruistic surrogacy in Australia.
Yeah.
So she'd already, had a number of kids and completed her family and wanted to make that gift. And so, we had Remy in 2021 in the middle of COVID, which was a very interesting experience.
Fun.
Yeah. And then, 3 months ago, we had Louis via commercial surrogacy in the US.
Yeah, right. And how did you decide the US? I've had quite a number of dads that have come through have talked about their international surrogacy journey. And I haven't had any that have done it through the US because it's been so cost prohibitive, but it's always been the gold star standard that, people could afford it, they would do it. What was the motivator to pick the US?
I think when we attended the conference and we really started to unpack the opportunities in the different parts of the world that we're doing surrogacy, what sort of resonated was the checks and balances that were in place through the US. We actually met with a doctor on that Saturday night and went through the process and understood what was going on. And I think for us, knowing that we had those checks and balances in place was assuring that this could be a process that could really support us to become a family.
Yeah. And that was really important to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think certainty of outcomes, nothing's guaranteed, but we thought we were going to do that. And the fact that we were, for our first child, we're able to use altruistic surrogacy in Australia, which obviously is a lot cheaper than commercial surrogacy in the US, then enabled us to, for the second child, go down that little bit more of a secure pathway.
Yeah.
And I think we were hearing some stories just around different countries that were changing the rules as people were in those, along those journeys.
Yeah.
So something that Andrew and I like is that clear certainty of what potential outcomes are going to be. So I think for us, it was when we were ready to look at our second child, looking at America was our option. That was what we were happy with.
And how did that all go? Did you join groups? Did you, to get the lowdown on picking the US and what the right agency was and all of those kind of things? Or did you just interview them?
So we spoke with some of the representatives. So I think it was Oregon Reproductive, the group. We ended up not using them for a couple of reasons, but we said, who would you recommend in terms of, good surrogacy agencies? They recommended Northwest Surrogacy. Mm-hmm. So they're based primarily in Washington State and Oregon. And, we then did further research online and sort of validated that they were a good surrogacy agency. So, and that's where we started off. And, we were really, really happy with the service that they provided and how they supported our journey.
Yeah, great.
I think they were pretty clear too with what the process was going to be. So we sort of understood where we would be on a wait list before we were matched with a potential surrogate, what would happen from that point on. So the lines of communication were really open.
Yeah.
So I never really felt in that process that we were wondering. We always knew where we stood.
That's great.
Even when there was a bit of a wait to be matched, we understood that was the process. So I think that's really important.
For sure. And if anyone was going through this process or considering to go through this process and had worked out that they wanted to go through the US, what is some advice or something that you wish somebody that perhaps maybe had told you when you were doing it?
I think it's just doing the research as early as possible. So you might not want to physically have your child for another few years, but if you wait those few years before you start looking and researching, that process could then take a very long time.
Yeah.
So having that information and being informed about what your choices are when you're ready to make that decision with your partner or yourself or your family will then hold you in really good stead. And I think what we did when we were having Remy here in Australia, we were already investigating the process in America and understanding what that was going to be for us.
Yes.
So we knew when the time was right that we will put ourselves in a good position to then make some good choices.
So you have Remy and
Louis.
Remy and Louis. And Louis is
3 months old.
3 months.
Yeah, just last week.
Are you tired?
I'm okay.
One of us is. I'm fortunate enough to be on 4 months parental leave, so I'm the one that gets to do the late night shifts. But look, it's not too bad. I'm slowly adjusting after 3 months.
There is always that one partner that's like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Good. And the other one's like, well.
Yeah. No, but it's been really good and great to see the development that's taking place at the moment.
Yeah, it's been beautiful.
Yeah.
It is so
amazing
beautiful.
process.
Yeah. Okay, so you have your 2 children and you had Remy first and then for whatever reason that you're about to tell me, you say, do you want to open a childcare centre? Did it kind of go like that or was it a little bit more bubbling in the back of your mind?
Look, so my teaching career, like moving from the country to the city, it sort of was a windy road is the best way to describe it. And most people think teaching, secure, great place, you're all good. But my experience really was I was on fixed term contracts every year. People were either returning to their jobs, so I was displaced. The schools didn't have the budget to cover teaching salaries of people with experience. They were looking for graduates, which meant that year on year, I was really looking for a new home, a new place to teach.
It's a bit displaced.
Yeah. And people will find that really probably funny or bizarre, but if you dig deep, it's there. It's different now. It's really different now. Like schools are screaming out and offering ongoing positions, but everyone was on a fixed term contract.
Yeah.
And
which is not uncommon for government jobs, is it?
No, but the rules around that are, if you're in a fixed term contract, there's 5 conditions that really say, if you're in a position that lasts longer than, say, 12, 18 months, 2 years, you're meant to be translated into
It's
an ongoing job.
Yeah, yeah.
It just wasn't happening.
Right.
So Andrew and I discussed what would we do, what businesses would we start. We both had experience in hospitality, we had experience in retail, and we're like, we don't think that would be for us.
Mm.
My sister had a childcare centre, a very successful service, and ran that for over 22 years.
Yeah.
So
you had inside knowledge.
we sat back and said, okay, well, let's use the education, the business qualifications and experience, and why don't we look at doing something like that as well?
Amazing.
So that sort of started the process of us looking into what it would be for us to do that.
So that would have been about 2016, and it takes a fair amount of effort to actually get into childcare. The barriers to entry are quite high.
What are they? What do you mean by that?
So, I mean, I think there's a financial barrier to entry, but also just finding the right sort of opportunity which you think you're a good fit, because you've got to enter into arrangement with someone that owns a particular building. That you're paying the right price, and you think it's a service that you can actually turn into a successful service.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not as easy as many people imagine.
And that's probably like the business arm of it. But then you go into the qualification of the professional arm. So there's something called provider approval that you need from the Department of Education. So it's like, for when I did, it was like a 4-hour exam that you've got to go in, use the national laws and regulations and prove how you can interpret those to run a service. You meet with delegates, I suppose, of the government, of the Department of Education, and they interview you around your suitability.
Yeah.
So you have to secure that.
So it's not as simple as saying we've found an empty house.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's got this many bedrooms, and this one could be a play centre, and
Put
this
some cots here. Chuck some things.
It's a little bit more involved than that.
Yeah. It becomes complex. So you have provider approval, then you look at what the service approval, which is another layer of government.
And did your sister help you with that?
She was able to sort of talk us through the steps of it. So she's been a really good touchstone for us. There's things things that sort of sit out of other than just advice. It's like you will need to do this, and this, but then to actually have to go through that process is quite a challenge.
And I think the fact that you also had some experience working in the childcare centre directly meant that we weren't going in cold.
Yeah. Did I miss that? So you said that you worked in a childcare centre?
Well, just with our sisters as well.
Oh, right,
but I was doing some research while I was teaching and sort of understanding why children that were coming from kindergarten into primary school, why they were all coming with all these different experiences. Mm-hmm. So this kid over here did this type of education, and this person had this philosophy, and they had something different. And when they came to a school, all of a sudden, there's an expectation that all these 20 children will sit down and they'll listen to one person and they'll all read the same story and they'll all go to the bathroom when they say and they eat when they do. And it's like, hang on, what's going on?
It's chaos.
Yeah. Why is this child not able to adjust, and why is this person being able to do what they want to do? And so that led me to work for one of the major childcare companies in Australia, and I then ran their head office service in the city for a couple of years. So that was probably the step before us securing the service that we've got now. So
you guys are more than qualified to be doing this.
I think we've got the skill set to be able to do it.
And I think we're doing it for the right reasons. There's so much of the sector which is for profit and I don't think always motivated for the right reasons.
For sure. Those big childcare centres, and I've had experience with both, and we'll touch on that later when we get to doing it. Yeah. But you very much see that. Okay, this one's purely here to make money.
Yeah, and the fact that, we've got Adam as the centre director with his, broad educational background, being motivated by the right reasons. Yeah. I think, that's why we're probably a little bit different to a lot of other providers.
And so you eventually met all the requirements, and you went for, the government was happy for you, or whoever the regulators are were happy for you to open it. What was the process for actually finding your childcare centre and eventually opening it?
So there are real estate agents that specialise, I suppose, in all sorts of commercial arrangements, and we were able to find one that we were working closely with. They put a range of offers to us, and I think the one that sort of sat with us the best was the one we've taken. The service was an older service. It had really good opportunity for growth. It had a really lovely floor plan.
But so it was an existing childcare centre, and you're the new owners.
Yeah.
Been around in a care function for, I think, over 100 years.
Wow.
So, it's obviously evolved, and they've added new buildings to it. The site is quite special. It's on 12 acres of land,
Wow.
which I don't think any other childcare centre would have. But then that affords us opportunities around Bushkinder and other programs that we can run on.
Are you happy to say the name of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're called
Go.
Bright Minds Early Learning in Diamond Creek.
Okay.
So when we're thinking about what we're going to call a name, it was really around sparking curiosity and giving children opportunity to use their brain and their mind as much as they would like to, and then being supported along that journey as well. So we had a few little funny names to start with, but we landed on one that we thought Bright Minds. It's unique. We looked around. There wasn't anyone else sort of in that space using that name. So for us, it was important that we had a presence in the education sector that was taken seriously. So we weren't too like kitschy, kitty. It was more, no, we want to be taken really seriously as an education provider.
Yes.
As well as caring for children at the same time.
So, I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but a childcare centre is open to, like, do you guys take babies?
Yeah, so we have children from 6 weeks of age up until school age.
Yeah. So in terms of being an education provider, when do you feel that kind of kicks in? You know, a baby, you would just be looking after the baby, right? Because the parents are going to work.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
Education's beginning. Yeah, so it's beginning like from birth. Children are growing. So the first 1,000 days of the life of a child is like super important. It's where their brain development's kicking in and where they're really taking in lots and lots of things. So children at that age, like, they're taking cues from us. So when we're communicating with them and you'll see their eyes widen or their mouth opens, the tongue's popping out, they're communicating with us. And we take for granted that they're actually little people. And there's a lot of work going on in the space at the moment around the rights of children and when do those rights kick in. And there's, the school have thought, oh, well, until they can start talking. But actually, no, it's way before that. Like they're telling us already.
Yeah.
So, they're telling us when they need a nappy change. They're telling us when they're hungry.
Wow.
They're telling us when they don't want their tummy time. They're really communicating all the time.
And we'll do like lesson planning, right for people in nursery. So as soon as that they join, and it's just a different set of objectives and goals.
Yes, yeah.
That would, compared with the older children, but they still exist. We still go through that same process.
That is amazing and makes a lot of sense when you say it out loud, and probably not something that I would say a lot of people that are not in that space really think about, right? And I would imagine parents that are sending their child at 6 weeks, there's a need for them to do that. They might, there might be a financial need, or they might need to get back to work, or they might need a break or whatever. And knowing that they're handing their child over to like a centre like yours where you guys are actually, well, I mean, I'm not going to open a childcare centre because for me it's like, okay, well, we'll just pop the baby in the cot and make sure it's fed. But you guys are actually thinking about, okay, well, what's the education needs and what are the needs of this child?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think that's my background coming from a small community. You grow up and that village raises a child. Like we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always about how are we making sure that everyone can be the best they can be. And these little people that come along to us, they have their own ideas, they have their own personalities, and it's really up to us to make sure that we're providing opportunity for them to be stretched and learn new things. So when we've got those little babies in that room, it's like looking at, okay, there's milestones that are set by the early years learning development frameworks. There's things done with the government, maternal child health. How do we implement those things to make sure the children are getting access? And like you're saying about people accessing care, it's really such a spectrum of people. There's people that may not have high parenting skills that really rely on their childcare service to support their child and stay around.
Didn't even think of that.
Yeah, and then there's families that are both needing to work to be able to support the family, and then there could be a single family So the demographic and the fabric is really, really different. And what we want to make sure is that when anyone comes through our doors or the children are in our care, that they've got those opportunities to be safe, but also to be learning all the time as well.
How big is the centre?
So we're 90 places. Yeah, so we have up to 90 children.
That's big.
Yeah, it's all governed by your land size. So there's rules around. Every child must have 3.25 square metres.
Well, you guys have got acreage, so can you have 1,000 or something?
Yeah.
Imagine 1,000.
Lots of teachers.
The hard no. Okay, so you opened the childcare centre. How long ago?
We're probably we've just gone into our third year.
Third year.
Yeah, so we've just ticked over into that third year now. So,
and if you had babies that have, when you first started, they'd be now 3.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That must be so special.
Yeah, it's really, really amazing. And even like as it was a business that we've bought, We have some teachers that are still with us that have had children who are like 2 or 3 months old that have followed them through to kinder age, and they've now gone off to school. So when we do our end of year celebration, these teachers really have a lovely relationship with the family and the child, and they're off to a big school now. So
yes,
we've really seen their growth and development.
Well, in terms of that relationship that you would have with the parents, it would be, because obviously I'll put it this way. When Stephen and I moved back from London and we had Skylar and Tala, we came back and it was an abrupt coming back. And so we quickly learnt with the childcare landscape back then, you can tell me what it's like now, but it seemed to be everywhere that was worthy of putting your child had a ridiculous wait time. Like I'm talking years. And we were like, oh, wow, God, we just didn't know that was the case. And so Skylar unfortunately had to go to a childcare centre where, they were immediately able to take him, and we took him there, and it was a double-storey building, and it had a lot of rooms and a lot of educators, to the point where you weren't allowed to take your child to the room. You had to drop them off at reception, and the educator would come pick up the child and take. Yeah, and we're like, this just feels really disconnected from what we wanted. And then we had feelings of guilt, like he's just too young to be putting in childcare and all of that kind of stuff. And we were a mess because it was the first time that we were putting him in childcare, and they were like, he'll be fine, just leave, get in the car, it's you making the scene, the child's fine. So Skylar's crying and I'm crying, and then they would do like what almost felt like an obligatory call where they would be like, he's calmed down, he's smiling, he's laughing, he's all good, bye. And then fast forward to having to place Tala into a childcare centre. It had been around the period of COVID. And I can't remember at what stage of COVID it was, but it was where we had picked the childcare place that we wanted, and they had availability because so many parents were switching. They used to work full time. And now that they were working at home, it opened up all these spaces at the real, the ones that we wanted. There was no longer a waiting list. They were like, well, yeah, if you want to bring Taylor in, we can pop her in because we've now got room. The difference was just, she'd get a huge hug and you would chat there and you would talk to them. They would do meditation at the start. And we're like, then we felt guilty. We're like, Skylar missed out on all of this. Like he got the crappy one and Tala's got the really good one. But through that process, we were able to learn that no childcare centre is the same. They are all very different. And going back to what you were speaking about before, when they reach primary school age, how come there's these cluster of children and they're all so different?
Yeah.
So how it lends me to direct the discussion in how does someone that's listening to this, what are the things that they should be looking at for when they're choosing their childcare centre?
So when we do our tours through the service, like we're quite personal with the families, and we try and understand what is it the family needs and why they're here. And once we have that, we sort of tailor our tours for what's needed. But it's really about when you walk into a space, how do you feel? What does your child do? Do they cling on to you for dear life, or are they looking through windows and showing curiosity? People greeting you, smiling? Are they rushing around? Are they, no one's got time? Like it's really that vibe. As soon as you walk in the door, you'll get an understanding of the space you're going into. Some of the spaces I've worked into, reception was sort of through the building. So you had to walk past a fair few things happening around you before you even got to the people you're going to talk to. We're pretty fortunate we're at the front door. But it's really about when you get there and arrive, it's like, okay, what are my non-negotiables here? What's my non-negotiable today?
What do you mean by that?
Well, it means like I really want to make sure that everyone speaks to me, or when I go into the room that my child's going to be in, that someone has acknowledged my child and myself, not just the centre manager or someone taking you for a tour, but people are stopping to make sure that you feel like you're welcome in that space.
And I think it'll take time before a parent realises what those non-negotiables are. So it's normally after a couple of, tours at different centres, perhaps they've seen other kids go to different childcare centres and they've got those questions as well. But I think having that clear understanding and then sensing from the person that's doing the tour and the educators that you're speaking to that they are trying to find out that information, because if they're not trying to find out that information, they're not going to be able to provide a personalised service, that they're not going to be able to come up with something that is appropriate for that that particular child.
For sure.
And we talk about whether you're just doing a facility tour, so you're just showing me what your childcare centre looks like, or are you really celebrating the learning that's going on for the children? And so having that clear in your mind as well, are they just walking you through going, that's the nursery, that's the toddler room, there's the kangaroos. Or are they saying, this is the room where they're doing lots of learning around ocean animals. That's why you'll see all the whales on the floor. And if you look over there, that's our art room there, and they're doing work around Dali's, impressionism, whatever it is. So if people are really connected to the space and the tour that you're going through and people know what's going on, you're going to feel like this is a place where everyone is really welcome.
You would walk out of there going, I think this is the one. Yeah. What kind of questions do you think parents should be asking, during that process?
Oh, look, I think the big one, the number one ticket item on everyone's list at the moment is, what's your staff turnover like? Everyone's wanting to know what's going on. And the sector is pretty dynamic. So people have moved and they change, and for many different reasons, like they've pivoted into childcare to aged care. We have people that have come from finance backgrounds coming into childcare. So what's your staff turnover like? Because my child's coming in and they're building a relationship.
Okay.
Are they going to see the same people all the time, or is it going to be like a revolving door of agency staff that my child's not going to connect with, and they're not going to know my child? So I think understanding that's a really big question.
Oh God, I feel terrible. I never even thought of that.
It would have been different. There wouldn't have been a lot of agency staff needed. Like there would have been security in the sector at that time, pre-COVID, and it would have been that educators or teachers worked there for many, many years, if not forever.
Yeah,
things just changed, and people just changed the services, and as they find different opportunities in other spaces, teachers would then move into those there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, parents often ask around activities that and what programs are run. I think one thing that's really good when you do your centre tours is not just showing them the space that they're going to go into, but the entire journey. So if they're coming in at nursery because they're, 6 weeks old, trying to understand across the service how they will progress across the different rooms and what that complete end-to-end journey looks like. I think that's really important.
What is the breakdown? You've got nursery, early childhood, and then...
So nursery is 6 weeks to about 14, 15 months. And then you move into a toddler. We have toddler 1 at the moment, which is like that 14, 15 months up to about 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the children who are beginning to walk or walking, can start to self-feed, can sort of move themselves around a bit. Then we have a toddler 2, so they're 18 months, 2 years to 2.5, so fully independent.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are probably starting to do some toilet training, so probably need support later on.
Mm-hmm.
We then move into like a pre-kinder, so children who are just about to turn 3 within a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a 3 to 4-year-old funded kinder. So they're the spaces that we have at the moment. And we focus on what the community needs at the moment. So we had just nursery, just toddler. And then we were taking in lots of little people, so who are like, say, 3, 4, 5 months old. So we then split those rooms to make sure that there was room for the little people and then room for the other people to move around as well. So
wow.
Yeah.
And so what would you say in terms of, let's be real, the people that are going to be listening to this podcast are going to be queer and most likely be rainbow dads, although welcome listeners that are not from that catchment. What would you say, first let's discuss how you guys celebrate diversity and inclusion, and then, we can move into what parents should be looking at with their childcare centre.
I think we're doing an okay job. I think there's always scope to be better. But I think we're really upfront that we're a same-sex couple that have our child in that childcare service. We really celebrate that. Our families embrace that as well.
I love that.
So,
yeah. And you've never had any negativity with that?
Well, not to us.
Yeah.
Whether people have decided, and I made a comment the other day, but people may have chose not to come to our service because of that. But we celebrate that and we promote that. So
I love that.
When we're walking through the service, this is our son. We had him through surrogacy.
Oh, guys, I love that.
So they know, what the situation is going into that. And, we've actually had several parents choose us because of the progressive nature of what we do.
I bet.
They're not same-sex couples.
Yeah.
They want their child to be raised in a progressive environment.
Oh, I love that.
It's really interesting, like the other parents like really lean into our story, and they're like, they've been so invested in Louis being born in the US. What's going on? Where are you up to? When do you go?
And we gave them updates in the Center newsletter, and so really brought them along that journey, and everyone was fascinated by it.
Yeah. I bet. And then you break down that wall, don't you? That you're not really a business sort of, service provider. It almost feels like a bit of a family.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's such a community. Like when you walk in, it's like you're talking to your brother or your sister. Or,
I love that.
If grandma comes in to pick up, you're talking to her as well around something. It's like,
And we do have extended families that are at the centre. So it's not just one particular family. It's that they've got cousins and they've got
that are all coming to you.
Correct, right? So that I think adds to the family vibe.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What was it before you guys took over? Was it the same amount of kids, like 90 kids?
No.
Or you've grown it?
It was a 90-place capacity centre.
That's the service. But the busiest day was probably 21, 22 children.
Wow. So you guys have really grown it.
So
yeah. I mean, it was a centre that required a bit of love and attention, which we've been able to give. And I mean, I think that the community's really embraced it.
Yeah. And I think what the great thing is in most childcare services, your best form of advertising is word of mouth. So
for sure,
we do minimal marketing because it all just comes. Like the tours I've done today were because there's another family that are there. And
they've recommended it.
Yeah, they were on a knife edge when we took over. They're like, another change of management. When you came in, we were giving you a couple of months and we'd see how it goes. And they're like, we could not be happier. So they've recommended 4 or 5 families to come in because they're just really happy with how things are going. So
it sounds like you really celebrate diversity and inclusion to the point where you're very open about your diverse.
Correct. And we look at the landscape of the rest of the community as well. So we embrace people from all walks of life and really make sure that people feel connected to us. And that's, we have an end of year celebration, not necessarily a Christmas party. So that way some of our family members feel like they can come along and not compromise any of their values or beliefs. So we've got single parents that have used IVF as well.
Rainbow families?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, after this.
Not to my knowledge, but it's just great to see. And then, we've got people that are coming from backgrounds that are like there is trauma in their background. So we're really supporting them. And then we've got some people who are quite affluent that are in our service as well. But just the whole
mix.
And so lovely.
And I think the activities that we do, we try to make sure, I mean, we don't really do much in the way of pride activities, but we would, and not saying we wouldn't be open to that in the future, but all the different religious denominations, we try to do something that's, obviously there's Christian focus, there's Islamic focus, a whole range of different things. And then also, making sure that we've got a fairly strong Indigenous element to our curriculum and the activities and how we engage with the community as well.
That is amazing. So what do you think is important? Well, let's before we go into that, what about Mother's Day and Father's Day? I'm really curious.
Yeah, I think something, even as a teacher, like that was something I really looked at. And we talk about Special People's Day, like it's really about people who are important to you in your world. And how can we say thank you for what they do? And having a conversation the other day was more around, do we really need to do experiences or create that clay handprint, or should we really be learning about what the role of that person, that caregiver is in your life? And I'm thinking that's a really great way to think of things instead of making a product. Goes home. It's like, let's talk more about why these special that person's there and why they are in your world. And we're in a situation recently, we've had some tragedy at the service and it involved a family, and then you've got Mother's Day coming up. So how do we embrace that? So it's like, talk about what's most important here, and then that's really around that's those special people in your world that really make it special for you. And then what we see is that transfer over to other children. So yes, you've got a mum and dad, and that's lovely, and you can make mum or dad a card. I've got a very special person in my life and I want to acknowledge what they've done for me, and I'm going to do that by making them a card or something.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It is just so lovely that you guys are just so on it. I think it's beautiful. I wish you guys were around when we were. I would have driven to you.
It's interesting, and I suppose, maybe it comes with experience and world experience as well. But to me, it's like you just want to make sure that these people have got a really great start to what's going on. And that's not all the bells and whistles and all the techie tablets and things like that. No, how are these people going to fit into society, and how are they going to be able to manage and navigate through what's going to be presented to them later on? And if they've got the skills now to be able to start to do that, then things are going to be a bit easier for them to manage later on.
Mm-hmm. Were you going to say something?
No, I mean, I think, building in that resilience is a big focus of ours through formal programs. We also have a fairly well-established bush kinder program. So there's that physical resilience where they're actually out on the land. They're doing physical stuff as well. Yeah. So, I think it's, adopting that sort of whole focus for that particular child and trying to build up that resilience across all those different dimensions.
Yeah. Amazing. So in terms of, is there a standard for diversity inclusion or a practice that centres can actually be guided by?
Yes. So there's
just back to that question.
There's a new scheme that's been introduced. It's been updated, probably last year, maybe. Yeah. Called the Child Safe Standards. So there's 11 child safe standards that we're all governed by. And then there's also something called the Reportable Conduct Scheme. But the child safe standards are really big on equity and diversity and making sure that everyone that can come along or should have access to care. So it's part of these 11 standards that we're governed.
So if there were rainbow dads that were considering putting their child in childcare, and they wanted to know, what should they be saying to the centre is, look, should they be saying something like, how would you manage us being two dads, or what would be the question? How would they frame it?
Look, I think the first thing I would reach out and say is, tell me about your equity and diversity policy.
There you go.
Because that'll just be a red flag. If someone's like, oh, gee, I don't know, I need to look it up. But if someone can just slide it verbatim, then you know that they're really passionate about making sure that there is inclusive. Yeah. So that's going to be there. You're going to see there'll be visual cues for you as you're walking through a space as well. Like, whether there is the rainbow flag, if it's visibly displayed, if you've got agent. You might have teachers that are wearing certain clothing or flags, or they'll be promoting diversity as well. So,
and to ask questions like, how do you celebrate Mother's Day? And some of the things we've talked about today, I think they're really great questions to ask on those tours to see, are they the right sort of environment?
Yeah, and if you're getting responses like, oh yeah, we make them a card.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But it's also language as well. You can very much pick up on things just in general everyday life about the language that people use. Yeah. And I would imagine that going on a tour like that and asking the right questions, the questions that are important to you, maybe write them down as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if they're super important to you. But the language that's being delivered to you it can sometimes be the red flag.
Yeah, and I think if you're fortunate enough to already know a child that's there, don't just base your information off what their experience tour.
Yeah.
Ask other parents, how do they celebrate Mother's Day? Or, whatever's that important question to yourself.
Yeah.
Get the non-official response as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about how someone would manage the orientation, the drop-offs and the transition and all of those I found it really tough. I had lots of pings of guilt that, is Skylar too young to be going into childcare, and am I foregoing, this precious time that I could be having with him, but then also realising that, I needed that balance with, at the time, work and the breaks, and then I was my best self when I was around him, and, tell me how you guys manage all of that.
And so just before Ed gives, a whole wealth of information on that, I had that exact same feeling.
Yeah.
It's now on the surface.
Yeah.
And I still felt guilty putting Louis in that room. It's a beautiful space. I know he's going to be looked after incredibly well, but I think there's just something primal that is triggered there.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I think also we try and orientate the parents as well. Yeah. So it's important that we do that as part of the process when we accept a family into care. It's really like, okay, we talk about orientating the child, and they get to come and have a visit, and you tell us about the rhythm of their day, and What are their comfort items? We need to do the same to the parents.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So what are you guys going to be doing when your child's with us?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to go to work. Oh, I've got this commitment, or I've got to do that, or I've got study. Okay, so what is that going to look like for you when you're at home or you're
holding
there
their
and
hand
they're
a
there?
little bit.
Yeah. So we always say, get that started about 3 weeks before you need to be where you need to be.
Yeah.
So that gives you time to really support the child into care, but to support yourself as well. Some things that make it really rocky is like you come to a tour, everything's amazing, and because that's at like 10:30 or 1 o'clock when everyone's asleep. Reality kicks in when you're dropping off at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and the traffic is crazy on the road, and you're about to put them in the car, and then they need a nappy change. And then by the time you actually get to the service, you're really flustered, and the drop off is crackers, and you walk into a room and another child's crying, someone's got a runny nose, that one is nappy change. You're like, I don't want to leave my child.
Yes, yeah.
But if you've had those weeks to get into that rhythm and sort of go, yep, I can actually see what's going on, comfortable with my child, I've got time, I've got that extra 5 minutes just to watch them. Now I'm good to go. Then you feel like when you need to be where you need to be, things are in place, things are okay.
Yeah, and a little bit more comfortable.
And I think, as you're going through the transition, if you're not comfortable with it, to really maintain that dialogue with the centre and say, hey, this is what's going on, not suffer in silence, and come up with a plan to work through whatever anxiety or issues that you're facing.
Yeah.
And we have contact with families, like you're saying about the obligatory phone call, but we try and make sure that we don't get to that point. So now we've got a platform that's digital, so families can see photos, they can see updates as the day is progressing.
And, when nappies are getting changed.
What's that? Sorry, so you send photos during the day?
Yeah, so a parent will receive like a snapshot of your child engaging in an experience. So you sort of know what's going on.
Amazing.
But also see when the bottles feeding's happened, also when the sleep's happening, all that level of information.
Oh, wow.
Now you can opt out of that.
Yeah.
But I think, for a lot of parents that are nervous and they actually want to see what's happening to that child whilst they're away, it's actually quite a significant comfort to them.
Yeah, they can see, okay, Louis gone to sleep. He's had a sleep.
It worked for you guys.
It's actually not.
Yeah,
it's not, isn't it?
Okay.
It is automated now because there's a regulatory requirement for us to enter, that when all the feeds have happened and the nappy changes are happening. Okay. So rather than putting that in paper, we put it into an app that then notifies the parents.
Yeah, right. Wow.
So it is, and we're also looking at, how we use artificial intelligence with, doing curriculum planning and then also the observations, writing that to make sure we're getting the right sort of information. So there's so much exciting automation that's happening in this space.
But there's also so much that I've got from this conversation that happens with the delivery.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
There's a lot there's a lot of work that the teachers have to manage and they have to do. And I think what we've done by introducing the digital platform is then freeing them up to be with children.
Yeah. Yes.
So instead of them handwriting like reams and reams of paper, it's a click of a button and now I can be back present with that child, engaging and setting up experiences for them to learn through the day.
I've got 2 more questions before we wrap up. And one is if, and this is for people that are going through the process that have a child in childcare or going to put a child in childcare, and they feel like there's something that they want to discuss and it's a delicate subject matter, what would be your advice to them in terms of discussing delicate subject matters? To just create that dialogue at the start or to send an email? What would you
like to think that there's a relationship that the parents have with the service. So is it a conversation with the teacher or the educational leader, or is it the centre manager? So it's understanding where best to place that.
Contact there,
if your educator's crazy busy and there's things going on, it's a really dynamic space. Maybe it's having a word with the educational leader, or it could be about making time for the centre manager. Hey, can you just give me a quick phone call? I've got something I really want to, a burning question I want to talk with you.
Amazing.
I think by doing that, we'll then set up space to have your delicate thought, question, concern really addressed and listened to. if it's during drop off and things are really dynamic,
Yeah, probably not the right time. Right?
you might not get the response that you're after.
Pick the right person at the right time. And then also I think, face-to-face conversations for those more delicate discussions are really important because you want to be picking up those non-visual cues and, you want to be able to get the best outcome from that discussion.
For sure. I wrote it down and I'm curious about the childcare subsidy and how it works, but without giving, because it's probably a really complicated area. But I'm just thinking back to when we did it. It was always like, so we're getting what subsidy? And the percentage would always go up and always go down. What's your commentary on the childcare subsidy without it going into a whole nother episode?
So CCS, as it's known,
right,
childcare subsidy, it's a payment that the government make to support families to be back in the workforce to provide care for children. The way that it's worked out is really it's an activity-tested payment that, depending on the family dynamic and how it's set up and what people are doing, so are they working, studying, caring, they then get an amount of hours that are allocated. The most is like 100 hours a fortnight. So everything CCS is fortnightly based. Then depending on your income and your activity test.
So it's a means test.
Yeah. So depending on that, then will depend on what percentage of the fees that are covered. The biggest piece of advice is it's not dollar for dollar. So if you're getting 80% of a rebate on your fees, it's not the dollar for dollar. I mean,
yeah.
There's a formula that the government use. So there's even though the days are charged as a session day, not by the hour, the government still use an hourly rate times by the session. 5% withholdings that sit as pay-as-you-go to be done at tax time.
Who does all that? Who's the accountant?
Yeah, that's
just be so complicated.
Oh, it is. It is, I think, unnecessarily complicated.
For sure.
I think that they've tried to make it as equitable as possible and they've ended up with a system which is more complex than it needs to be.
Yes.
But I mean, when you're speaking with parents, what's the key things that they need to look out for? In terms of their CCS, is the CCS rate or?
The most important thing I think is just to don't do a set and forget where you get it and it's just done. You've got to keep going back and getting onto Services Australia, checking out what your activity test is like, making sure what you've estimated your income is going to be.
We always got into trouble with it. It would always be we would have to pay.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And,
it's crackers.
It was messy, yeah.
The arrangement, so parents sign what's called a complying written agreement with the childcare service that they work with, which means that the childcare service claims the money on your behalf and you pay the gap amount, so the difference between it. But the problem sometimes sits is that parents think that it's the centre that administers and organises that CCS. It's really got nothing to do with them. So it's like you need to understand that what the daily rate is for your service is what you need to be able to cover. And then what Centrelink.
So is that a good question to ask when you're going through? What's your daily rate?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, understanding what it is. And even though it is, most people are getting around that 70, 80% the government are paying for, like it's still going to be really, really different. So you'll have services that are up to nearly $200 a day.
Yeah.
So the government are paying 80% of that. Other services are paying $100 a day.
And because of the way that the formula is calculated, the higher the rate, proportionally you may get less back. Right. So it's not, if you're on a CCSA of 80%, it's about, 70 to 80% is the average. You may get 70, 80% if it's $125 a day. If it's $160 a day, it may be less. Based on how it works out. There's a complicated formula, but so I think it's trying to understand that daily rate, using some of the online calculators to put in that key bit of information.
And where are those online calculators? What would you search on Google for that?
So you can look on
Centrelink, surely.
You can look on Services Australia. Most childcare services will have an estimator on there as well.
Starting Blocks, which is the website that's got all the information on the childcare centres. It's run by the government. They do have a calculator as well, and then there's also another calculator. I forget the name of it, but it's actually pretty good. So just Google it.
And it will ask you yearly income, activity test, those sorts of things. And then it will populate out a figure for you that you can sort of estimate. And it's still estimated.
Yeah.
It's always just an estimation. But I think the key thing is get onto it as soon as you can.
Yeah.
So even if you're not thinking of care for, say, 6 months, I would still start the process early. So then you can sort of see what you need to do, how long is it going to take. So sometimes it takes 6-8 weeks to process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're still waiting on Louis' CCS to be approved.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it does take a considerable amount of time.
Yeah.
And what you think should be an automated process and it should be straight away, but apparently it's not. So, yeah.
And there's also something called additional childcare subsidy, so ACCS, which isn't really publicised.
ACS, you said?
ACCS, so additional childcare service.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, additional childcare subsidy. So if you qualify for CCS, but you have a major life event, there is this ACCS that sits on top of that the government pay the gap for you for up to 12 weeks. So there's a determination that comes with it. But it's really important that people know that that's there, not to be.
Say that there's a reason why they don't publicise.
Yeah, well, there could be. But
yes,
it's like if families need that help, we need them to know that it's there and they can still access care for whatever reason.
For sure. Well, I don't want to end on the childcare subsidy. That would be a pretty dull ending. Let's wrap this up by each of you telling me what is the greatest thing about being a dad?
I think it's seeing how they evolve and grow, and not to link it back to childcare, but I think one of the good things of having our kids in care is that they are learning so much on a daily basis, and they come home and, Remy was saying, oh, I think there was some breadcrumbs in the back seat because he's a messy eater. And we're like, oh, we should get the birds. He says, oh, yeah, but the crows will come. And it was just that the way in which he constructed the sentence was something that we weren't expecting.
Yes.
For a 2-year-old.
And they always
continually get that surprise of how they're putting things together. To me, that's the amazing thing. Sorry, I'm going to have a second one. It's sure. It's how it sort of it's brought our family together. Not that we were, a separate.
Oh.
So with Louis in the US, we had my mum and dad and my sister who lives in LA. She flew up. So we were all there for the birth.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Adam's family was quite involved as well. So you had these sort of life-changing events which bring families together. Often it's like a funeral.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a wedding. But, to have everyone there for the birth, that's the thing that sort of surprised me.
Yeah.
The extent to which, it occurred.
Yeah. So I would layer on that the same thing, like just how it's brought family together.
Yeah.
Like I come from a very close family, as does Andrew, but to now introduce 2 new people into our family, it's been very, very special. And just to see the interaction with my siblings, my nieces and nephews, Andrew's family as well, it's just amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think we're just so fortunate to be in that situation where family to us is everything. So to have them around us, it's been really good.
Well, thanks, guys. I feel so much richer for this conversation. It's so beautiful. And I think you too, what you're doing is amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.